And speaking of which, let's take a closer look now at our DUI laws here in Massachusetts. What happens here if you refuse to take the breathalyzer? Well, under the law, if you refuse, you will have your license suspended for 180 days. If it's your second offense, you lose your license for 3 years. Now, if you decide to take the test and then you fail it by blowing a .08 or above, you're going to lose it for 30 days. Is this law tough enough? Some states actually put you in jail if you refuse to take the breathalyzer. Not the case here in Massachusetts. To talk about this, joining us now, David Duellis, who is from MAD. You were hit by a drunk driver 12 years ago. You know what this is like firsthand. And attorney Russell Matson, who is a defense attorney who represents a lot of DUI cases. Appreciate it, gentlemen, that you're joining us on this subject, important one. And David, what's MAD's position on this? Do you think our law here in Massachusetts for refusing to take the breathalyzer is tough enough?
No, it's not, but I'd like to say that we have made a lot of progress in Massachusetts in the past decade, passing a lot of great laws, including Melanie's law, that have made a dramatic impact with regard to reducing our OUI fatalities, and we've seen a great, great increase in law enforcement in terms of enforcing those laws. But that being said, even with all the progress that we've made, that doesn't mean because we passed Melanie's law that we still don't have a problem in Massachusetts. And one of the big problems that we still do have is finding ways to give people some incentive to take those breath tests. So what currently happens is we do suspend your license if you refuse to take the breath test.
Right.
But if you go through the legal system and you're found not guilty, and once again, if you don't take the breath test, it's much easier to get to that not guilty verdict. You can basically appeal to the judge on the spot to get your license back, and we think that that law should be changed.
Okay, Attorney Matson, this is a perfect segue into you. In your opinion, do you think that someone should take or refuse the breathalyzer?
If you want to win the case, you're better off refusing the breath test than you are taking a breath test and blowing over the limit. And there are plenty of good reasons not to take the breath test. Sometimes they're simply not accurate. There's plenty of reasons why they can be off, and you don't want to take a breath test and get a falsely high reading and have it very difficult to win your case.
And David, you say that refusing makes Russell's job much easier as an attorney.
Oh, entirely. I mean, if you go into a case and your client hasn't taken that test, what happens is the state doesn't have that one key piece of evidence, that breath test, that's going to get them that conviction. Furthermore, if you go to a jury trial, for instance, when the jury is deliberating, one of the things that's inadmissible in court is if you refuse to take the breath test, that fact is inadmissible in court, in addition to the fact that the jury is not even allowed to know you were offered a breath test. So when they go back into that jury room to deliberate, what then happens is they're left to wonder whether or not the person was ever offered a breath test to begin with, and perhaps they even wonder, well, if he wasn't offered a breath test, maybe they weren't that drunk to begin with, and you wind up getting the not guilty verdict. If they take the breath test,
right.
I'd say more often than not, you're almost guaranteed that you're going to be able to get that guilty verdict, and that's what we're looking for.
What do you have to say to that, attorney?
I think that because the breath tests aren't always accurate, I mean, sure, it may be that if people take the breath test and they blow over the limit, they're more likely to lose the case, but that isn't necessarily the most just result. I mean, everybody charged with a crime is presumed innocent, and it's the government's job to prove the case against them.
Do you think that the law is tough enough, Attorney Matson?
I think if your goal is to encourage people to take the breath test, I can't tell you how many clients I have that tell me they were at the police station, they told the police they wanted to think about it a minute. 20 minutes later, they tell the police they want to take it, and the police say, oh, we already put you down as a refusal, too late. So if you increase the penalty for refusing the breath test, what's going to happen is you're going to have people that lose their licenses for a longer period of time, probably lose their jobs, and it's just not a very good way to accomplish that goal.
And David, you actually are saying the opposite to that.
Absolutely. I 100% disagree with that. I think right now what we teach people is, essentially what we teach the would-be drunk drivers is, when you're pulled over, refuse to take that field sobriety test, refuse to take that breath test, get yourself a good defense attorney, and you're going to get off. When the message that we should be sending is, we're serious about drunk driving in Massachusetts and we're not going to tolerate it. And that's why what we'd like to see is, we would like to see that license suspension for breath test refusal to be totally separate with regard to the outcome of your case. So if you're a first-time offender or, say, a second offender and you have a 3-year license suspension,
right.
Even if you're found not guilty, we want to see that 3-year license suspension carried out. Because I think what that does is it will give people an incentive to take the breath test. And the last thing I'd say is the best way to prove your innocence is to take the breath test.
All right, David Duelis from MAD, we appreciate you joining us at our Beacon Hill studio. And Attorney Russell Matson, a defense attorney, we appreciate you joining us here in our studio. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mary.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Russ.